This is part 5 of Roger's Actual Philosophy from my book Causation and the Universe: A Bridge Between the 1900s and the 2000s. There is another way of going about Plato's inconsistent theorem. The belief: 1. We believe there is a wolf in the meadow. And the rational reasons: 3. We have rational reasons to accept that there is a wolf in the meadow. With 2. There is a wolf in the meadow may seem to be waterproof as a logical framework. But the premise 2 should be read/understood and set up like this. The wolf is false, but there is a real wolf in the meadow that we do not see. It must be consistent with reality and the whole complete reality, with every underlying fact taken account for, if the belief is to conform with truth. This is how we must see the adapting of the situation with the wolf and the dressed up dog, I think. Had we just said, it must be consistent with reality, yes, it would have been correct. But should we allow the reality of our second premise to be so simplified as to say, there is a wolf in the meadow? If so, the premise would not be completely true, or at least not entirely complete. Look at the example with the costumed dog, which had a wolf behind it. We have rational reasons to accept the belief that there is a wolf in the meadow when we run by in the train, according to the original theorem. We have the illusion of the dog as a wolf. But coincidentally, there was a wolf in the meadow. Leaving aside premise 2, here in the form, it must be consistent with reality and the whole complete reality, with every underlying fact taken account for. Is premise 1 and premise 3 merely cosmetic? They are at least ideal types, constructed from our own short-sighted perspective, but still inconclusively constructed, since they in Plato's original theorem are not based on any actual situation, in an all complete situation, with at least, as in this case, the dog and the wolf in E. Getier's example. Premise 1 and premise 3 are merely convictions, which by chance happens to mess it up in at least one of the cases written above, where the wolf and the dog coexisted in the meadow simultaneously, in Getier's example. Hence, accidental conclusions. In conclusion, we must revise Plato's theorem or abolish it. And E. Getier's example reveals more about the world or epistemology than he perhaps thought it would. I am sorry I, in previous versions 1 to 9, did not recognize Getier's genius potential. Conclusion 1. One must have rational grounds for accepting the belief. Conclusion 2. Convictions lead to accidental conclusions. Conclusion 3. The costumed dog must look like a wolf and not a dachshund or a water fountain for the theorem to work. Conclusion 4. The theorem proves more than it can prove by the principle: the earth casts its distinctive shadow on the moon, and therefore the earth is round, which is false for some. In a textbook used at Lund University in the B course, called Philosophy of Language, A Contemporary Introduction by William G. Lycan from University of North Carolina, Chapter 13 on Implicative Relations, page 198, it says to read in the first line, sentences entail other sentences, and in that strong sense imply them. But there are several ways in which sentences, or utterances also linguistically imply things they do not strictly entail. It describes the chapter's content very briefly. Anyway, in this chapter you can read an interesting thing that you can directly connect to and make use of for Getier's problem with Lycan, or rather Grice, seemingly had any intentions in that direction, without Lycan or rather Grice seemingly had any intentions in that direction. There you can read, here, as in many cases, a good way to investigate the nature of these different kinds of implications is to ask about the penalty or sanction that ensues when an implication is false. When S1 entails S2 and S2 is false, the penalty is that S1 is false. When S1 semantically presupposes S2 and S2 is false, then S1 is sent ignominiously to zip. When someone utters S1, thereby conversationally implicating S2, and the conveyed meaning or invited inference S2 is false, then the penalty is that even if S1 is true, the speaker's utterance is misleading. If S1 conventionally implicates S2 and S2 is false, then S1 is misworded even if not false. One can implicate and translate this into Getier's example with the wolf directly like this. Here, as in many cases, a good way to investigate the nature of these different kinds of implications is to ask about the penalty or sanction that ensues when an implicatum is false. When a wolf, within quotation marks, in the meadow, S1, entails a belief, S2, and the belief S2 is false, the penalty is that the wolf, or S1, is false. When the wolf S1, semantically, I here choose to put this word within parentheses, presupposes a belief, S2, and the belief S2 is false, then the wolf S1 is sent ignominiously to zip. When someone utters wolf, S1, thereby conversationally implicating a belief, S2, and the conveyed meaning or invited inference of the belief S2 is false, then the penalty is that even if the wolf S1 is true, the speaker's utterance is misleading. If the wolf S1 conventionally implies a belief S2 and the belief S2 is false, then the wolf S1 is misworded, even if not false. It's complicated. To translate this, one must resort to some drastic interpretations. Among other things, one must interpret the following sentence. When someone utters wolf, S1, thereby conversationally implicating a belief, S2, and the conveyed meaning or invited inference of the belief, S2, is false, then the penalty is that even if the wolf, S1, is true, the speaker's utterance is misleading. You have to interpret that as Utterances never are trustworthy, regardless of whether they are true. But sequentially following a complementary interesting thing is mentioned, namely, if the wolf S1 conventionally implicates a belief S2, and the belief S2 is false, then the wolf S1 is misworded, even if not false.